Full Metal Jacket was brutal on screen, but the real lives behind it were far more terrifying. Some of its stars died suddenly. Some suffered in silence for decades, and others vanished before the world even realized they were gone. 38 years later, the tragedies that followed this cast are darker than anything Stanley Kubrick ever put on film. R. Lee Ermey as Gunnery Sergeant Hartman. R. Lee Ermey was born on March 24, 1944, in Emporia, Kansas. When he stepped into the role of Gunnery Sergeant Hartman in Full Metal Jacket, 1987, he was 43 years old, a real Marine playing a fictional one with terrifying authenticity. His explosive voice, razor-sharp stare, and military precision didn't come from acting school. They came from the life he had already lived. Before Hollywood ever noticed him, Ermey spent 11 years in the U.S. Marine Corps, including a tour in Vietnam, until injuries forced him into early retirement. That sudden loss of identity, from Marine to civilian, pushed him into a long period of uncertainty. He eventually found refuge in theater studies, where directors quickly realized his military instincts were more convincing than anything they could train an actor to do. His early roles in Apocalypse Now, 1979, and The Boys in Company C, 1978, helped him rebuild his confidence, even as he quietly struggled with being typecast and the lingering trauma of war. As fame grew, so did the burdens. Hollywood embraced his command presence, but it also trapped him in one image: the drill instructor, the authority figure, the unbreakable man. Privately, Ermey faced the pressure of maintaining that persona while juggling a stressful career and a demanding personal life. His long marriage endured separations, relocations, and the emotional strain of a man who was always on duty, even off-camera. Though he appeared in dozens of films and became beloved for his voice work, the physical toll of age and old injuries began to weigh heavily on him in his later years. Ermey passed away on April 15, 2018, at a hospital in Santa Monica, California, due to complications from pneumonia. He was 74. His legacy remains monumental, not just as Gunnery Sergeant Hartman, but as the Marine who turned his scars, discipline, and unmistakable voice into one of the most unforgettable performances in war film history. Kevin Major Howard as Rafterman. Kevin Major Howard was born on September 15, 1955, in Canada. At 31 years old, he appeared in Full Metal Jacket, 1987, as Rafterman, the nervous combat photographer who becomes hardened by the brutality of war. His youthful face and raw vulnerability on screen made him one of the film's most memorable supporting characters, even in limited scenes. Before Full Metal Jacket, Howard had begun to build a promising career with roles in Death Wish 2, 1982, and guest appearances on television. But behind the quiet momentum was a man wrestling with instability. Hollywood never gave him the breakout roles he hoped for, and the constant cycle of auditions, rejections, and financial strain left him emotionally worn. Through the 1990s, he shifted toward commercial photography to survive, but the transition was far from easy. The pressure of reinvention, coupled with inconsistent income, pushed him into long stretches of anxiety and self-doubt. He continued to take small acting jobs, but none matched the recognition he had earned from Kubrick's film. As years passed, Howard withdrew more and more from public life. While he found success photographing celebrities and producing documentary-style projects, the physical demands of his work began wearing down his health. By the early 2020s, respiratory problems severely limited his ability to travel and work, leaving him dependent on long hospital stays. Kevin Major Howard died in Las Vegas on February 14, 2025, at the age of 69, after weeks of hospitalization due to respiratory complications. Though his career never reached the heights many believed he deserved, his portrayal of Rafterman remains a defining part of Full Metal Jacket's legacy, a reminder of the ordinary young men shaped and shattered by war, both on screen and in life. Bruce Boa as Poge Colonel. Bruce Boa, born on July 10, 1930, in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. At 56 years old, he appeared in Full Metal Jacket, 1987, as the Poge Colonel, the blunt, patriotic officer who delivers one of the film's most memorable lines about the duality of man. Though his screen time was brief, his commanding presence and sharp delivery made him instantly recognizable to audiences. Before joining Kubrick's film, Boa had already built a steady acting career in the UK, where he became known for portraying authoritative, often comedic Americans abroad. His appearance in Fawlty Towers, 1979, as the iconic rude hotel guest made him a cult favorite, though the fame came with mixed emotions. He often felt boxed into one stereotype, the loud tourist, the overconfident officer, and struggled privately with the fear of never being taken seriously as an actor. Through the 1980s and 1990s, he continued working in film and television, balancing small but memorable roles while managing the pressures of an unpredictable career. In later years, Boa's health began to decline quietly. After decades of appearing in British productions and supporting a family while constantly on the move, exhaustion and age caught up to him. He returned to Canada for long stretches, seeking a slower life after years of industry turmoil and increasingly limited opportunities. Despite the emotional weight of leaving behind the work he loved, he remained gentle and grounded, devoting more time to writing and personal projects. Bruce Boa died on April 17, 2004, at the age of 73. His passing marked the end of a long, understated career defined not by awards, but by unforgettable character moments. Vincent D'Onofrio as Private Leonard Gomer Pyle. Born on June 30, 1959, in Brooklyn, New York, Vincent D'Onofrio was just 27 years old when he appeared in Full Metal Jacket, 1987. Transforming completely into Private Leonard Gomer Pyle, the fragile recruit whose psychological collapse remains one of the most haunting moments in war film history. To embody the role, D'Onofrio gained nearly 70 pounds, still one of the largest weight gains ever made by an actor for a part. The physical transformation was only the beginning. The sudden rise to fame brought intense pressure, and D'Onofrio struggled privately with the emotional aftershocks of portraying such a disturbing character. His work in Mystic Pizza, 1988, and later in JFK, 1991, showcased his brilliance, but the industry began labeling him as difficult because he refused superficial roles. Through the 1990s, he faced recurring exhaustion, injuries from demanding action scenes, and long stretches of self-doubt as he navigated a career that rarely matched his ambition. His marriage to actress Greta Scacchi also ended painfully, weighed down by distance, career friction, and his internal battles with insecurity. By the early 2000s, D'Onofrio became a household name again with Law and Order, Criminal Intent, but even success came at a cost. The grueling television schedule pushed him into extreme fatigue, culminating in a widely reported on-set collapse in 2004 from stress and overwork. He later admitted that the relentless filming pace had driven him into a near breakdown, forcing him to reevaluate his life. Yet despite career turbulence, he continued to deliver acclaimed performances in The Cell, 2000, Men in Black, 1997, and Daredevil, 2015, proving he could disappear into any character, sometimes so fully that it shook his own emotional stability. As of 2025, Vincent D'Onofrio is 66 years old and remains active in film and television. He continues portraying Wilson Fisk in the Marvel Universe, directs independent projects, and is admired for his uncompromising commitment to the craft. Matthew Modine as Private Joker. Matthew Modine was born on March 22, 1959, in Loma Linda, California. He was 28 years old when he starred in Full Metal Jacket, 1987, as Private Joker, the film's sardonic narrator whose moral conflict became the emotional spine of Kubrick's war epic. With his calm voice, piercing eyes, and understated vulnerability, Modine delivered a career-defining performance that placed him at the center of Hollywood's spotlight in the late 1980s, but the ascent was short-lived. After Full Metal Jacket, Modine was offered several blockbuster roles, including parts in Top Gun and Back to the Future, but his idealistic clashes with studios and his refusal to accept what he considered empty roles created tension behind the scenes. He chose art over commercial fame, yet the industry quietly punished him for it. Through the 1990s, while he delivered acclaimed performances in Married to the Mob, 1988, and Shortcuts, 1993, his name slowly drifted from leading man status to the outskirts of Hollywood. Financial instability followed, and at one point he spoke openly about nearly going bankrupt, admitting that his principles had cost him opportunities others would have seized without hesitation. The instability seeped into his personal life. Though married to Caridad Rivera since 1980, the pressure of inconsistent work, rising debts, and the emotional turbulence of a fading career strained their relationship for years. Behind closed doors, Modine battled frustration and self-doubt, questioning whether his commitment to artistic integrity had sabotaged the life he once dreamed of. It wasn't until the 2000s, with roles in Weeds and later Stranger Things, that he slowly re-emerged, finding a renewed sense of purpose in projects that matched his values. By 2025, Matthew Modine is 66 years old and remains active as an actor, writer, and environmental activist. Adam Baldwin as Animal Mother. Adam Baldwin was born on February 27, 1962, in Winnetka, Illinois. He was only 25 years old when he took on the role of Animal Mother in Full Metal Jacket, 1987, embodying the brutal, adrenaline-fueled machine gunner whose cold aggression became one of the film's most unforgettable forces. His towering frame and intense performance marked him instantly as a rising talent in Hollywood. But fame brought complications he could never have anticipated. After appearing in films like Predator 2, 1990, and Independence Day, 1996, Baldwin's career seemed ready to break into the mainstream, until deep ideological clashes with the industry changed everything. In the mid-2000s, during the height of his success on Firefly and Chuck, Baldwin became publicly vocal about his conservative political views. What began as online debates quickly escalated into highly publicized confrontations, drawing criticism from fellow actors and fans. The growing hostility made him a polarizing figure, and roles that once came easily began to disappear. As social media amplified tensions, Baldwin became entangled in several controversies, including accusations of harassment and aggressive online behavior reported by multiple outlets. Although he denied wrongdoing, the backlash was severe. For a period, his career was effectively sidelined. Studios hesitated to hire him, conventions distanced themselves, and public opinion turned volatile. The isolation hit hard, forcing him to confront the cost of his outspokenness and the impact of being branded too controversial for mainstream Hollywood. Now, Adam Baldwin is 63 years old. He continues to work sporadically in television, voice acting, and independent projects, maintaining a dedicated fan base despite years of public scrutiny. Dorian Harewood as 8-Ball. Dorian Harewood was born on August 6, 1950, in Dayton, Ohio. He was 36 years old when he played 8-Ball in Full Metal Jacket, 1987, the fearless machine gunner whose confidence hid a deeper, quieter tension beneath the war's chaos. His strong screen presence and emotional grit made 8-Ball one of the film's most memorable figures. Harewood's early life was far from easy. Growing up in a strict household marked by harsh discipline, he learned early what fear, pressure, and resilience felt like, emotions he would later channel into his performances. When he entered Hollywood in the late 1970s, appearing in Roots, The Next Generations, and The Falcon and the Snowman, he quickly discovered another obstacle: the limited roles available to black actors. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, he often found himself fighting against stereotypes, turning down parts that reduced him to clichés while watching less talented actors move ahead simply because they fit Hollywood's expectations. Even as he built an impressive resume in both live action and voice acting, the emotional burden of constantly proving himself weighed heavily on him. Long stretches without meaningful roles led to periods of depression and self-doubt, the silent battles many actors face but rarely speak about. Yet Harewood persisted, carving out respected voice work in animation and video games, using his deep, commanding voice to sustain his craft when on-screen opportunities fell short of his abilities. Today, Dorian Harewood is 75 years old and still lives quietly, occasionally accepting selective acting and voice roles in 2025. Arliss Howard as Cowboy. Born on October 18, 1954, in Independence, Missouri, Arliss Howard was 32 years old when he appeared in Full Metal Jacket, 1987, as Private Cowboy, the calm, steady squad leader who tried to hold his unit together as Vietnam unraveled them one by one. His understated intensity made Cowboy one of the film's emotional anchors, hinting at a career many expected would soar after Kubrick. But Hollywood rarely follows the script actors dream of. Though Howard continued working steadily after Full Metal Jacket, including a major role in The Lost World: Jurassic Park, 1997, the breakthrough leading man status never arrived. Projects came, but momentum didn't. He found himself navigating a career filled with strong performances that never quite translated into widespread fame. And during the filming of The Lost World, he suffered a serious onset injury that required a long recovery, forcing him to pause work and reconsider the physical cost of the profession. That setback quietly slowed his trajectory, arriving at a time when he needed visibility the most. His personal life, though rooted in love, faced its own complications. Howard married actress Deborah Winger in 1996, a partnership that brought creative collaboration, but also creative tension. Working together on projects like Big Bad Love and the HBO film In the Heart of the Sea, they often clashed over artistic choices, schedules, and the emotional weight of mixing marriage with work. Friends described periods of intense friction, moments when their shared ambition became a burden rather than a bond. Yet despite the challenges, they continued building a life anchored in mutual respect, even when the industry felt unsteady beneath them. As of 2025, Arliss Howard is 71 years old. He works selectively as a director and actor, contributing to television projects such as The Good Lord Bird, while maintaining a quieter, more private life away from the Hollywood race. His journey may not have matched the expectations that followed Full Metal Jacket, but Cowboy remains a defining reminder of his talent, a performance that outlived the fame he never sought and never fully received. Tim Colceri, Door Gunner. Get some. Tim Colceri, born on June 3, 1951 in Canton, Ohio. He was 36 years old when he appeared in Full Metal Jacket, 1987, as the Door Gunner. The unhinged helicopter shooter whose chilling line, "Get some," became one of the most infamous moments in the film. But few viewers ever knew that behind this short, explosive performance was a heartbreak that defined Colceri's entire career. Before filming began, Colceri had been hand-picked by Stanley Kubrick to play Gunnery Sergeant Hartman. For months he trained obsessively, preparing for what he believed would be the defining role of his life. Then, everything changed. Kubrick brought Ermey, originally hired only as a technical advisor, onto the set, saw his natural command, and slowly shifted the role toward him. Colceri felt the ground move beneath him as his dream slipped away. When the final decision came, he was removed from the role he had lived and breathed for months. The director eventually reassigned him to the much smaller part of the helicopter door gunner, a gesture meant to keep him in the film, but one that deepened the wound rather than healed it. After Full Metal Jacket, Colceri kept working, appearing in films like The Hanoi Hilton, 1987, and guest starring on television, but his career never recovered from the emotional blow. He carried both pride and resentment. Pride that one of the film's most iconic scenes belonged to him, yet resentment that the industry remembered Ermey while forgetting the man who almost wore the campaign hat. The role that should have lifted him instead became a lifelong reminder of what he had lost. By 2025, Tim Colceri is 74 years old. He lives a quiet life and continues to attend some fan conventions, still respected for his brief but unforgettable appearance. John Terry as Lieutenant Lockhart. John Terry was born on January 25, 1950, in Vero Beach, Florida. He was 37 years old when he appeared in Full Metal Jacket, 1987, as Lieutenant Lockhart, the calm, calculating officer who embodies the cold bureaucracy of war journalism. His measured voice and restrained performance made him a quiet but essential presence in Kubrick's portrait of Vietnam. Terry's road through Hollywood, however, was far less steady than the roles he projected. After early success in The Living Daylights, 1987, as Felix Leiter and several strong stage performances, his career seemed headed toward major stardom. But the momentum slipped away. A series of poorly marketed films and canceled projects pushed him into long periods of professional uncertainty. Hollywood's shifting landscape left him typecast as the well-groomed authority figure, a limitation that frustrated him deeply. By the mid-1990s, he was juggling financial instability and an unpredictable work schedule, which weighed heavily on his confidence and emotional well-being. With acting jobs scattered and inconsistent, Terry spent years moving between cities, taking whatever roles he could find, often far from home and family. Friends described periods when the strain of separation, travel, and self-doubt created real emotional distance in his relationships. His health also suffered. Recurring injuries from action roles and long shooting days left him dealing with chronic pain, adding another layer of exhaustion to an already difficult career. Even when he earned renewed recognition through ER and later Lost, the roles never fully steadied the turbulence he had navigated for decades. Now, in 2025, John Terry is 75 years old. He lives quietly, largely retired from acting, occasionally appearing at nostalgic conventions and focusing on personal writing projects. Though his career fluctuated dramatically, his work in Full Metal Jacket remains one of his most respected performances. A reminder of an actor whose quiet power left a lasting mark, even as the industry around him offered more struggles than stability. Kieron Jecchinis as Crazy Earl. Born in 1957 in London, England, Kieron Jecchinis was around 30 years old when he appeared in Full Metal Jacket, 1987, as Crazy Earl, the sharp-tongued, battle-ready Marine whose brief but memorable presence added grit to Kubrick's portrait of war. Though his screen time was limited, his intensity and raw energy made him instantly recognizable to fans of the film. After the movie's release, Jecchinis struggled to find the same momentum that many of his co-stars achieved. Hollywood offered few opportunities, and through the late 1980s and 1990s, he drifted between small film projects, television roles, and short-term jobs behind the camera. The sudden shift, from working on a Stanley Kubrick production to facing long periods without substantial work, left him creatively adrift. He attempted to reignite his career through writing and directing, and while his passion remained strong, the projects never gained wide attention. As the years passed, Jecchinis stepped further away from acting. Without the steady rhythm of film sets, he focused on smaller creative endeavors and personal projects, choosing to live privately rather than chase an increasingly elusive spotlight. His retreat from public life, intentional or accidental, made him one of the most enigmatic figures to emerge from Full Metal Jacket, a performer whose talent shone briefly before disappearing from Hollywood's radar. Today, Kieron Jecchinis is in his late 60s and lives quietly, largely removed from the film industry in 2025. He rarely gives interviews and remains almost entirely out of the public eye. Though his career took a different path than many expected, his portrayal of Crazy Earl endures, a short, striking performance that left a lasting mark long after he chose to leave the noise of Hollywood behind. Kirk Taylor as Payback. Kirk Taylor was born on May 17, 1959 in New York City. He was 27 years old when he appeared in Full Metal Jacket, 1987, as Payback, one of the young Marines in Cowboy's squad, remembered for his raw expressions of fear and exhaustion as the war closed in around them. Though it was a supporting role, Taylor's emotional honesty added texture to the film's devastating final act. After the movie, Taylor hoped Kubrick's masterpiece would open doors, but Hollywood moved differently. Throughout the late 1980s and early 1990s, he drifted between minor roles in films and television, including memorable appearances in School Days, 1988, and The Return of Superfly, 1990. Yet the opportunities were inconsistent, and typecasting became a constant barrier. As offers slowed, he found himself wrestling with disappointment, the painful realization that being part of a landmark film didn't guarantee a bright, steady career. Those uneven years pushed him to reconsider his path, forcing him to confront both financial challenges and the emotional toll of unrealized expectations. Instead of giving up, Taylor redirected his passion. He began teaching acting, mentoring young performers who faced the same uncertainty he once did, and occasionally appeared in independent productions that allowed him more creative freedom. Even so, the quiet stretches between projects were difficult. Hollywood's silence can be crushing, and Taylor often stepped away from the spotlight entirely, choosing privacy over the exhausting pursuit of roles that rarely matched his abilities. His journey became one of perseverance, a slow, reflective navigation through an industry that celebrates few and forgets many. As of 2025, Kirk Taylor is 66 years old. He continues to work selectively, splitting his time between acting, coaching, and community-based arts programs. Though he never reached the fame some predicted after Full Metal Jacket, his dedication to the craft and his ability to endure the hidden hardships of the acting world remain a testament to quiet strength. Payback may have been a small part of the film, but Taylor's commitment left a lasting impression on those who remember the soldiers whose stories flickered briefly across Kubrick's screen. 38 years later, Full Metal Jacket still stands as one of the most unflinching portraits of war ever filmed. But the real battles were fought long after the cameras stopped rolling. Some of the actors rose, some fell, and others simply vanished into the quiet corners of life, carrying scars the world never saw. Their journeys were shaped by heartbreak, illness, disappointment, and the relentless weight of an industry that can lift you up one moment and forget you the next. Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to like and subscribe as we continue exploring the untold lives behind Hollywood's most unforgettable legends.